Section 2 of Who Was Who by Irwin L. Gordon. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Sean McGahey.
Alan Davis Drake. Jim.
Who Was Who? B. Baby. T-H-E. An unscrupulous tyrant. Son of father and mother. His first appearance caused heaven at home and an idiotic father. Education. At home. Career. A series of adventures. Was frequently ill, a poor sleeper, toy demolisher, throat exerciser, nurse distractor, and a general nuisance. Despite his shortcomings, he ruled home with an iron hand. A tear caused a doctor, a smile meant a gold mine. Diet, principally liquid. Ambition, the moon. Recreation, coaching, hair pulling, a proud father. Address, see mother.
Bacchus, patron saint of most men, benefactor, a jolly good fellow, and the founding of the morning after feeling. Studied vine raising when a young man, discovered that grapes were not intended for a food, invented the greatest pleasure and pain giver the world has ever seen, became a traveller, introduced ale and stout in England, whisky in Scotland, everything in Ireland, cocktails and patent medicines in the United States, beer in Germany, champagne in France, absinthe in France, and vodka in Russia. Career magnificent. Recreation, Paris, address, Greece, clubs, all, except WCTU. Epitaph, he will live in the throats of his countrymen.
Bacon, Francis. Either wrote or did not write Shakespeare.
Baedeker, Karl, one of the most versatile men who ever lived. Childhood and old age unknown. Formed an ambition to travel when quite young. First visited Switzerland, where he climbed every peak, walked every path, hired every guide, and did everything a tourist should do. His field of travel widened until every country in Europe was visited, as well as the United States, Canada, Alaska, and Mexico. In these lands he slept in every hotel, ate every dish in every restaurant, drank every wine, rode on every boat, tramway, subway, and train, visited every ruin, museum, art gallery, church, store, mastered every language, science, art, literature, custom, history, and drew maps and plans of everything. Publications, Baedeker's. Recreation, staying at home. Ambition, tourists. Residence, Germany.
Balfour, Arthur James of England. One time leader of the talking forces of the House of Commons. Ambition, opposition seats on both sides of the House, and an epitaph over the Home Rule Bill. Recreation, St. Andrew's Golf, and writing deep books.
Balzac, H. A Frenchman who wrote a few Parisian stories which may be discussed in respectable company.
Barbarossa, Kaiser, the only emperor of Germany who ever went to sleep.
Bacchus, fame rested only upon his complete willingness.
Barleycorn, John, an eminent citizen of the world, spent early days in the fields, breweries, and distilleries, later resided in cellars. John had a red nose, was a great friend of Bacchus. He was a wasser, he is an isser, and he will be a will-beer. Ambition? The end of temperance societies.
Barnum, Phineas T., fathered the introduction of the peanut, the clown, and the beautiful bareback riders. As a sideshow, he taught that some Americans were progressives part of the time, that other Americans were Republicans all the time, but that all Americans were not Democrats all the time.
Barry, Madame Dieu, writer's model, former Queen of France, was a great friend of Louis XV and helped make the dances at Versailles a success. She always preferred Marcel waves to pompadours. Ambition, to have and to hold. Address, see Louis. Clubs, anti-suffragette.
Bartholomew, an unfortunate saint who was skinned alive, patron of gold mine investors and American tourists in Europe.
Beard, blue, inventor of an original method to dispose of wives, before Reno was discovered.
Beatrice, a Florentine girl who gained fame by refusing the suit of a love-sick poet. Later, she conducted him through heaven and made arrangements for his travels in the other place. B died a famous old maid. Ambition, a lover with money. Epitaph, she might have been Mrs. Dante had she wanted to.
Beecham, a celebrated pill-roller.
Bell, Alexander Graham, inventor of a well-known necessity and nuisance. Started the saying, "Number, please."
Belshazzar, an old king whose handwriting on the wall proved to be correct.
Benedict, saint, the man who introduced Benedictine and monks into Europe, also gave his name to Benedicts.
Berlitz, the man who will teach you how to say it in everything.
Bernhardt, Sarah, an ancient French actress. Sarah was born before birth records were inaugurated, and no historian has been able to determine her age. Career: on the stage at 4 months. During her young woman and good-looking days, her B is said to have made a hit with the European nobility. In her declining years, she made a few other fortunes in the United States. B's fame culminated in having several cigars, perfumes, perspiration powders, and a theatre named after her. Ambition, the fountain of youth. Recreation, statuary, acting. Address, private cars and 56 Boulevard Pereire, Paris. She also has a telephone.
Bill, Buffalo, alias W.F. Cody, the delight of the American boy. He began his career shooting buffaloes and Indians on the plains of the West and ended it shooting glass balls for a fortune in a tent. Installed the "I want to be a cowboy" ambition in the hearts of young America. He also made a goatee and a big hat famous. Played the show market a little too long.
Billiken, a funny little fellow who did not wear many clothes and made people laugh.
Bismarck, a German who was a greater politician than any island has ever produced. He built an empire, crowned an emperor, changed the Frenchmen in Alsace-Lorraine into Dutchmen, and made the Paris Mint work overtime for his country. Quite unpopular in France. Ambition, made in Germany.
Blackstone, a rock upon which a legal ship may be foundered.
Blériot, benefactor of humanity, idol of the tourist, and enemy of navigation. Blériot discovered a method of crossing the English Channel without being seasick.
Blücher, a Dutchman who was on the job at Waterloo. He also was not the only German general who ever fought France.
Bonaparte Joe, just Nap's brother, see him.
Bonheur Rosa, a lady French artist who wore men's clothes. Being an old maid, she painted animals, but never mastered the parrot or the cat. Her endeavors were confined to horses, and one of her paintings is considered fair.
Booth, General William, founder of a vast army, which never fought a battle, made a retreat, or surrendered, conducted campaigns in Great Britain and the United States, with brass bands and collection devices. The army later became a suffragette institution, when women were admitted as recruits. and placed a sentry to guard the Christmas-Easter collection forts. Publication War Cry. Recreation reviewing troopers and troopesses.
Boswell, Dr. Johnson's press agent. See the doctor.
Bradstreet, author. Wrote a book in which he described your bank account and how you paid your bills. His complimentary comments are highly valued.
Brieux, Eugène, a seller of damaged goods who got away with it without being fined or driven out of business.
Brown, John, an American who helped start the Civil War by espousing the cause of the Negro. This resulted in his body molding in the grave.
Brown, Thomas, an Englishman who reversed the usual procedure of life by springing into print when young and keeping out of it when old.
Browning Robert, a cryptogram writer whose poems are deciphered by the Bostonese and cultured English people. It has been estimated that B could say more with fewer words and conceal his meaning better than any writer since the adaptation of the alphabet as a means of expression.
Browning, Mrs., Bob's wife. She also wrote poems. They were easily understood and consequently seldom read.
Brummel, Beau, a man whose thoughts were more for the crease in his pantaloons than for his head.
Brutus, et tu, a Roman murderer.
Bryan, William Jennings, a famous Chautauqua lecturer who ran a newspaper and the State Department on the side. Archaeologists claim Bryan formed a passion to rule the nation when a child. He only got as far as the Democratic Party and platforms, became a golden orator with a silver speech, and offered himself as a rectifier of all things not Bryan. For ages his name was placed on the presidential ballot and later removed. Made a fortune by telling people why they did not elect him. Also toured the world, but shot no game in Africa or Monte Carlo. Was the father of Bryanism, an odious word meaning things Bryan. Later secured one Wilson to attend to Washington detail work. Motto, all things come to him with bait. Ambition, short ballot with one name. Publications, The Commoner, a newspaper devoted to Bryan advertisements. Address, mail forward from Washington. Epitaph, he will rise again.
Buchanan, J.C., manufacturer of the Scotchman's delight and weakness. He showed the world the excellence of two colors and caused many a man to lose the keyhole.
Buddha, a prince of India who tired of good times and turned reformer, advised his congregations to adopt the recall and a referendum, nailed several anti-saloon and burlesque planks in his platform. After B's death, his friends filled the Orient with his bronzes. He was fat and wore a fascinating wart on his forehead.
Bull, John, a fine, fat, American beef-fed individual who inhabits a suffragette-infested island somewhere in the North Atlantic. Born several hundred years ago and is beginning to show his age. Is fond of the sea and is said to have a fine fleet. This has had off years, notably 1812. Bull had trouble with a son who wishes to leave the paternal protection, is fearless except when faced by a hunger strike, the Pankhurst family, and thoughts of Germany. Patronizes a costly social organization known as the Royal Family, or a reception committee for American aristocracy, which also dedicates buildings, poses for stamps, postcards, motion pictures, and praises princesses of Wales for magazine articles and crowning purposes. Bull is a monitor of English style, wears a monocle, spats, a cat's cane pipe, awful accent, and never makes his appearance without a called both. He detests the word egotism, is a celebrated humorist, seeing through all jokes but himself. Ambition, Home Sweet Home. Recreation, tea, weekends. Address, Heinland. Clubs, policemen's, golf, jockey, and suffrage. Epitaph, see Emperor William again.
Burns, Robert, surnamed Bobby, a Scotch bard who wrote love poems about his sweetheart. He thus performed two remarkable feats, making poetry in the Scotch language and finding a girl in Scotland who was as beautiful as his lines declare.
Butterfly, Madam, a little Japanese lady, whose child has remained the same size and age for the past 8 years.
Byron, Lord. An Englishman who swam rivers, was wise enough to get away from the London weather, helped kindle Greek fire, and wrote poems.
End of section 2. B.